I'm Rhyll Croshaw, President of SA Lifeline Foundation.
And I am Rhyll Croshaw, Vice President of SA Lifeline Foundation, and we are the co-founders of this organization.
We, 2 years ago, decided that we would put together SA Lifeline as a 501c3. We're a nonprofit dedicated to helping people find information and education about sexual addiction, pornography addiction. When I was 6 years old, I first found a pornographic magazine. I looked at it, and then I chose to give it to my mother. However, I looked for pornography from that point forward. When I first met my wife, I chose not to tell her that I had been involved with pornography. I was ashamed to talk about it, frankly. And I talked to an ecclesiastical leader about it, and he said it probably isn't necessary to disclose it if you have stopped the behavior. Well, I thought that I had stopped the behavior because I did not want to look at it any longer. I felt like being involved, having my sexual desires fulfilled in a marriage relationship, those desires would be gone. That was not the case. At age 37, I determined that I couldn't live that life of deception any longer, and so I came forward and disclosed that I had lied from all of the time that we had been married. That was very destructive in our marriage, very difficult for both of us to deal with. However, we were given advice to not look back, to repent of the behavior, move forward. And so that's what I said I would do.
I was devastated by this information. I had not seen any red flags, except that I knew that the relationship was not right. My feelings were that something's wrong and it must be me.
I didn't understand that I was dealing with an addiction, and I didn't understand how vulnerable I was to relapsing back into the behavior. 3 years later, in fact, I did relapse back into the behavior. I was ashamed, and I chose not to disclose that. And so I continued on. I tried to stop, but I could not. I tried multiple times to stop, but I could not. 10 years elapsed from the time that I came forward the first time until I determined I had to disclose again that I had relapsed. I was very ashamed of the fact that I had lied, that now I'm essentially involved in the behavior twice, that I had been unable to stop.
And so the second time I was a different person. I was stronger in many ways. And I determined that something was more wrong, really wrong. This is not just an occasional sin. This was something that he was not able to stop on his own. So I found counseling. I found as much information that I could about pornography and sexual addiction. And I encouraged him to go to these meetings and go with me to counseling. And for about a year that we did that.
Then I went back to essentially living my life as I had before. And it was about 3 years from the time that I disclosed the second time that I slipped back into the behavior again. In 2005, and at this point I'm in my 50s, I recognized that a life of hypocrisy was impossible for me to live. And so I chose to come forward again. With that determination, I came forward with a desire at that point to do whatever it would take for me to stop the behavior and move forward in my life in an honest way.
I basically gave it over. I felt that I had done everything that I knew how to do, and probably more than I should have, in holding the relationship together through all of these experiences. And so I really surrendered in a moment. And I gave him over to God. And I thought that the marriage was over. But as we found some good therapy, as Stephen found that good therapist who really understood sexual addiction, he asked me if I was willing to stay with my husband if he was in recovery. And my response was, I don't know what recovery is, and how would I know? I have been lied to so much. How would I know about recovery? And this qualified therapist said, you will know. And so I slowed my life down. I basically stood back and watched to see if my husband was willing to do whatever it took. and to see a change of heart in him, which was brought about by that willingness to do whatever it took, and a humility and a honesty that I hadn't seen before. And that gave me little bits of hope, that perhaps I could trust again someday.
Our story is difficult to tell, and I'm sure it's difficult to listen to, because the repeating of the behaviors and the repeating of the failures to try to stop can sound discouraging. And frankly, that's the reason why we felt like it was so important that we become involved in this work to help other people learn and understand what is necessary to do in order to find recovery. It just is not possible for most people to go through repeated attempts and failures and keep their lives together, their marriages together, their families together. Thus, we've decided to become very much involved in this work and help people understand really what's necessary to find recovery. So that's really what we're here to talk about today. With the information that you've heard, you can understand that it's obviously difficult for people who are dealing with this behavior to understand what to do unless good information is found. So what we recommend, and having had these experiences, is that people that are dealing with this find qualified counseling and recognize that it is important that each person be willing to work their own recovery first before they work on their marriage, hopefully keeping their marriage intact. Along with that qualified counseling, it's important to disclose to an ecclesiastical leader, and so that the spiritual relationship that one has with their religious belief is congruent. We also feel it's very important for recovery of both to be involved in a 12-step fellowship. And there are excellent 12-step fellowships available that are sponsored on a community-based programs as well as church-based programs. We highly encourage people to be involved in 12-step. But first and foremost is a desire to break away from the behavior and be willing to do whatever it takes. And whatever it takes, do. First, be honest. Come out of hiding, and then be willing to do the work. We're grateful that we can be here together to talk about our experiences of seeking recovery. We believe that recovery is possible. We believe that those who seek recovery and are willing to do the work will find it. Finding it is of great value. It requires a connection with each other. It requires a connection with God. It requires reaching out to other people. It requires being honest and open. It requires hard work. But it is possible, and we're grateful for the opportunity to share our story with you today.
I too am grateful to be here together with my husband and to have found my own recovery of peace and serenity and a spiritual connection in my own life that helps us be together in our relationship. Thank you.